Okay, I think we'll get going here, and we will begin with the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. As a reminder, I'll be presiding over the meeting until our president is elected. The Board of Education makes available one copy of the Open Meetings Act. It's on the back table, or the agenda is on the back table. The act is posted on the walls. The meeting's been advertised in the newspaper, online, and in the buildings. First thing up on our agenda tonight is the oath of office. Policy 201.04 for Bennington says that all board members will take the oath each year. And so if we could have everybody please rise. The oath is in front of you. We'll just do this all together. And so basically, I'm just going to say I, you say your name, and then you'll continue to go in unison through the entire thing. So if you could please raise your right hand. I do
solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely and without mental reservation or for purpose of evasion, and that I will faithfully and impartially perform the duties of the office of Bennington School District Board of Education according to law and to the best of my ability. And I do further swear that I do not advocate nor am I a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or this state by force or violence, and that during such time as I am in this position, I will not advocate nor become a member of any political party or organization that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States or of this state by force or violence, so help me God.
Very good. Thank you all very much. We'd like to have a special welcome to Joe Pick, our newest board member, in his first meeting, and all sworn in. So here we go. B on the agenda is the reorganization and election of officers. And so I will preside over the meeting until the president is elected. Each board member will have the opportunity to nominate a member for the presidency. If there is one nomination, then we'll vote on that nomination. If there are multiple nominations, it'll be a secret ballot, and we will hand those out, and we can write those down, and then we'll record what the results were. So the way this would work is we'll just need one person to nominate. So if you want to nominate somebody to do that, we will not need a second. We'll give an opportunity for everybody to have to nominate if we want multiple. We will then need somebody to move to cease the nominations, and then a second to cease the nominations. We'll do an all in favor, and then we'll vote on that particular office. So with that, we'll take nominations for the president position.
I nominate Allison Slavatsky for president.
Tim Dreesen's nominated Allison Slavatsky for president. Any other nominations? If none, entertain a motion to cease nominations.
Motion to cease nominations.
We have a motion to cease nominations. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor of ceasing nominations, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. And then we'll take a roll call for Allison Slavatsky to become president of the Board of Education.
Christy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Okay, motion is approved. I am done.
Your favorite part of the year.
Screwing up too bad. All right.
All right, thank you. We'll move forward then with the next office, which is the office of vice president. Are there any nominations for the office of vice president?
I nominate Tim Dreesen for the office of vice president.
Any other nominations?
I nominate Christie Ryan.
Any other nominations? Are you one?
No, I am now.
All right, any other nominations? Is there a motion to cease nominations?
Motion to cease.
Thank you, Jeremy. And then we will proceed with a, second on the cease motion.
Second.
Thank you, Joe. And then we'll have Jody hand out the ballot since we have multiple nominations.
All in favor to cease the nomination, right?
All in favor to cease the nominations?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Jody. Give you just a minute to sort through those.
Okay, there were 5 votes for Tim Dreesen to be vice president and 1 for Christie Ryan.
Congratulations, Tim. All right, next up is the office of treasurer. Any nominations for treasurer?
I nominate Jeremy Dick for treasurer.
Any other nominations for treasurer? Is there a motion to cease nominations?
Motion to cease nominations.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Do a roll call, please, Jody.
Christie,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Elsie,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next up is the office of secretary. And as a reminder, last year we shifted some of the burden that Jody was having from doing that to an elected official. So she's grateful for that. So are there any motions for nomination for secretary? I nominate Christie Ryan. Any other motions for secretary? Is there a motion to cease?
Motion to cease nominations.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Jody, please call the roll.
Christie,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Motion passes. And then I'd like to just acknowledge in the minutes that Jody will act as our appointed recording secretary for purposes of what she's continually doing. And then Christie will sign off as secretary as the elected official, similar to this year. Just wanted to make sure everybody was okay with that. Yes. Have opportunity for comment if they were at a different suggestion.
No, Jody is much appreciated.
All right, I think that now brings us to the approval of the slate of officers, which would be President Allison Slavoski, Vice President Tim Dreesen, Treasurer Jeremy Dick, and Secretary Christie Ryan. Is there a motion to approve the 25 slate of officers?
I move to approve the 2025 slate of officers as presented.
Thank you, Tim. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, Jody, please call the roll.
Christie,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. And then we will move next to the approval of the practice and procedures. As Dr. Claus mentioned, this is our reorganizational meeting, so annually we go through certain policies just to make sure everybody's on the same page, and that happens in January. Dr. Claus, do you want to walk us through the basics of these, and then we can discuss further?
Yeah, there are 8 of them that are within the practices and procedures. The first one is just an approval or reapproval of our current policies, regulations, and handbooks. And so with the new board, it's just reaffirming what has already been approved for this school year. The second one is the depository for the school district, which is I3 Bank, formerly Bank of Bennington. That has been the main depository for the school for many decades. It's the only bank within the city limits as well. We have an excellent relationship with them. They're very supportive of the district. Also being so close, there's the flexibility that comes with it as well, which we always appreciate. Third one on there is our newspaper of record, recommending 3 of them, the Daily Record, the Omaha World Herald, and the Douglas County Post-Gazette. We typically advertise in the Daily Record because the World Herald is every single day. Occasionally we have to go there. The DC Post-Gazette we haven't used often as they're not always in circulation, but just approving all 3 of them gives us maximum flexibility into the future. And so we recommend all 3 of those as our newspaper of record. I did want to note that there's a new newspaper in the area called the Bennington Herald. It doesn't quite meet the requirements at this point just because it hasn't been in circulation long enough. So that's why it's not on there. The media relations policy, this is not a mandate, but just a reminder of the policy. Probably best practice for all inquiries from news media seeking information to roll through the superintendent, and that if the board is going to comment on something, the board president typically acts as the spokesperson for the board with news media engagements. Another, just a review of the board member code of ethics, not mandated, but good practice to review the code of ethics. That's in policy 202.01. We should probably all spend some time just looking over that each year. Dissemination of conflict of interest statements. I think Jody handed those out, or else she will shortly. If you just identify any conflicts of interest that you have, no board member can have interest in any contract in which the board or the board member's immediate family is a partner, director, officer, or stakeholder of a closed corporation with significant value. That's kind of the language that they use. So anything that you think might apply to you that could potentially be through a contract in the district, just mark that down and we'll take those as well. G is to designate the superintendent as the authorized representative for Bennington Public Schools for all local ESU, state, and federal programs. Oftentimes you need a signature on behalf of the district, especially for grants and awards that come through those entities. And so it would designate myself as that authorized representative. And the last one is the non-discrimination compliance coordinator by the law. We have to have one of those. Recommending Matt Blumenkamp as the head of human resources. It makes sense for him to be in charge of non-discrimination as well. Happy to field any questions on those.
Right, does anybody have any questions? I know it's a lot at the beginning of the year, but I think it's good practice to review those, and I hope everybody has time to do that as preparation for the meeting tonight. If so, there is a suggested motion.
I move to approve the 2025 school board practices and procedures as listed and presented.
Thank you, Christy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any further discussion? All right, Jody, call the roll, please.
Joe,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Allison,
Yes.
Jeremy,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Christie.
Yes.
Motion passes. The next item in our regular organizational meeting is to the appointment of the 2025 committees, and under policy, that roll calls to the president for appointment. And just wanted to review quickly. Fortunately, I've had a chance to at least talk with everybody throughout the year, and I have had a chance to talk with Joe as well in advance of the meeting. And there are 3 committees that are standing committees, of which the appointments are by the president. The first is our Building and Finance Committee. The second is our Curriculum Committee on American Civics. And the third, of course, is our Policy Committee. So those 3, I've kind of spoken with everybody and tried to figure out where their strengths and interests are. And the Building and Finance Committee has typically housed the treasurer, since that kind of aligns with their role on the board. And Tim and I have served on that since we've gone on the board several years ago, so we're going to keep that committee the same. The Curriculum Committee typically was Steve Shannon and Christy Ryan, and Karen Newark is obviously not on the board anymore, so I'd like to ask Joe Pick if he'd be willing to serve on that, and
Yes.
so I'd like to appoint him for that. And then the Policy Committee would remain Allison Slavoski, Steve Shannon, and Jeremy Dick, and we've kind of gotten on a roll with the more regular review of the policies, and so I think it makes sense to have some continuity there. So essentially, the committee assignments will be the same with the addition of Joe to the Curriculum Committee. And the last item is the Bennington Bennington Public Schools Foundation Liaison, which is, last year was Christy, and ask for you to serve on that again if you are willing. Yes, okay, great, thank you for that. All right, there's no motion as that's just a discussion item, so we will move on to what we typically start our meetings with, which is our public forum section. So I see a lot of folks in the audience this evening and a lot of kids, which is great. We're glad you're here to hear a little bit about what we do here at the Board of Education. If you'd like to speak to the board, there are these kind of gold colored flyers there in the back of the room. So anybody wishing to speak to the board, we just ask you to fill these out, bring them up here to Jody up at the front of the room.
and then we will have an opportunity to hear your comments and feedback. We ask that you try to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. We have a very full agenda this evening and want to make sure we get to the business of the board meeting as well. So we will begin with Rich Carlson. I saw him in here. There he is. Welcome, Rich. So as you come up, Stacy will be so kind as to keep track of the time on there, and that's why I'm not going to have to flag you down. But please keep your comments to 5 minutes, and any personnel items should be addressed with the administration.
Feel free to flag me down. First thing on the agenda, I got the annual report. I was highly, highly impressed. Everybody involved, the board, the administration, the teachers, and everybody involved put this thing together. I hope and I pray that everybody that's a voting member, whenever the things come up in the future for bond issues or everything else, took the initiative to be an educated voter and read this. So who's ever involved did a damn good job. Next of all, I want to hand out a compliment. Our Bennington School Foundation. We just don't know how happy we should be for all the people that's donated their time and the finances for our children. And next of all, not all children, young adults too. We need to be highly impressed that the money's going for good purposes and look at the outcome of what our kids have done. Let's hope the voters realize and do an educated voter when things come up in the future. Don't we just be marking things, get the facts. Second, third, I'm on the third. I'd like you to explain to me, I was kind of happy with my property tax. I don't think a person in here is going to complain, but I just would like it explained to me, did we have Peter, Rob, Paul, Rob, Peter, whatever? Is our school going to still live with the same amount of finances? Or did the state kind of get it out of sales tax, or how did we do? Because it saved a pretty good, and I did a line item veto on my tax statement. I like everything explained to me, not just here's the bill. And the school was a certain portion, and there was another portion that was pretty good. So I'd like it explained, if you can, tonight on how they did their finances to make that work. And third of all, I've heard in the last year or so that different people have had comments, well, we need to ask the people this and ask the people that. Well, we've hired you folks, and you're working for free. The board is, you don't get a nickel, you donate your time. So I thank you for your time, number one, because once in a while, I can't say it'd just be the greatest job in the world. But thank you for doing it. So whenever it works, make sure we build that building out there. I thought on this annual report was really good. It's been, since '05, we did a high school. So I guess that's what, 20 years ago? And they were smart enough that they had additions to it. So an outside wall didn't get ripped down, it turned into an inside wall. So everything was done in a cost-effective measure. As far as portables or junk, everybody's tried it in the state for quite a few years and can't even sell them, so it's worthless. You're doing utilities for certain things, and you gotta rip that out. You look right here, our building, our third school building was built in 1940 and it's still usable. So let's explain what really makes sense when it comes to spending a buck. If anybody knows me in this neighborhood, I'm pretty conservative. So let's get that handled. And I guess fourth is, if everybody thinks we shouldn't even build a school, what are they gonna do? Have a morning shift and an afternoon shift and do school from 6 in the morning till 12, and 12:30 to 6 in two different schools in the same building? Now that's about as dumb as you get, but I hope we don't have to come to it. Let's make it work, and thank you for your time, and somebody else can have my minute, 26 seconds. That's what they do in the Capitol. They give me time.
Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich. Dr. Paul will be in touch with your question related to the property tax credit that appeared in the tax credit. All right, next up is Sherry Wood. Welcome, Sherry. Thank you for coming to speak to us tonight.
Okay, so I just want to piggyback on what that gentleman said. We need another school. I have 3 children. I have one in elementary, he's a 5th grader. I have one that's in 8th grade, and I have one that's at the high school that's in 10th grade. And I don't want to see things get cut. I think Bennington has been very good for our family, and families move out here for the schools. So I think we need to continue that, continue to keep our teachers and back our teachers, back you guys. And thank you for everything that you do for the kids and for the schools. It's super important to be putting that money into the kids, as you know, and we need another high school. We need another bond sent out, so hopefully this time it'll pass and we'll get that going. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry.
All right, does anybody else wish to speak to the board this evening? All right. All right, next up on our agenda is our consent agenda, which includes approval of the agenda, approval of the minutes from our Monday, December 9th, 2024 regular meeting, presentation of January bills for approval, and our personnel report. Who had bills this month?
I had been,
Okay, Steve.
I had just asked a couple questions about some line items, and they were 2 annual membership fees, one for Amazon Prime and then one for Google Workspace. And so just clarify that that was an annual membership, because I didn't remember seeing that before. So
Perfect.
that's all I pulled out.
Great.
That was unusual.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on the financials that were submitted? Okay. All right, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jeremy. Any further discussion on the consent agenda? All right, do we call the roll?
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes, and that brings us to our reports and presentations section of our board meeting, and we'll begin with our administrative reports from Mr. Boyce, Principal of Anchor Point.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome, Mr. Pick. The elementary board report this week really highlights, we really wanted to highlight our connection that we have with our community. Our PTOs in each of our buildings do such a great job of supporting our teachers, our students, administration. They show up, they show pride, and they really showed out this last December. And we wanted to make sure that we gave a shout out to all of them. All of our buildings do different things, but one thing you can count on is that our PTOs are super highly involved in each of our buildings. We're really proud of that. The other thing that we want to highlight is our district spelling bee, and we had some amazing spellers come out of our elementaries. And I know the district bee was this weekend. I haven't heard the final results, but I know that we sent quite a few amazing, outstanding spellers. And a lot of times that's a 3rd through 5th grade spelling bee that we run. I think for me this year at Anchor Point, we had 2 3rd graders win, so you're never too young to be an outstanding speller. But just the connection with our families, even at the bee, we had so many parents show up and support us. So we just continue to build that connection, and I agree, we need another high school because a lot of those kids that are coming up are going to be looking for those great opportunities that our current schools currently have. So any questions for the elementary?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Boyce.
All right, next up is our middle school, and Mrs. Rucker is here.
Good evening all, Renee Rucker, Principal at Bennington Middle School. I just also want to highlight a couple of things from the end of the first semester. We have a winter music concert. We were really excited because we were able to combine the musicians at both Bennington Middle School and Bennington South. The band concerts were held at Bennington South. We had the jazz band, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade bands, as well as the Maronka Ensemble, which is unique as a club to Bennington South. And then we also had the combined choir concerts at Bennington Middle School and North. It's really exciting because we know these kids are going to come together in the high school, so it gives them an opportunity to perform together. Another unique opportunity for our students is our mini courses at the end of first semester. That was that short half day. Kids would have the opportunity to do various like crafts or sports activities. There was learning how to do books for basketball. So just a lot of unique challenges and opportunities for our kids. So, questions from you at all?
just know my kids love the mini courses. Thanks for keeping it.
Absolutely, we had fun, and we started out on another note, we started out the next semester on a positive note, it's been a great 6 days. Thank you. All you.
Thank you. All right, our high school report from Dr. Lamberty.
Good evening, Greg Lamberty, Bennington High School Principal. Just the first couple bullets up there. Important to note, I think that 95% of the students at the high school passed all their classes in first semester, which is the highest we've had for a couple of years. So it continues to go up, as we all know, trying to get from 93 to 95, 95 to 97. It does take quite a bit of effort on our staff's part. Mr. Bowles, Mr. Kessel, our counselors, do quite a bit of work to put kids in a position to be successful, and then ultimately the kids have to take advantage of that position, and they've been doing that. The other piece, daily attendance rate, it says 140 kids there with 8+ days. That actually, the daily attendance rate for Bennington High School first semester was 97%. So probably a pretty good correlation between attendance and achievement there when you read between the lines. So the tardies are listed there in terms of the grade level, and I know we have several seniors in the building, not necessarily an area you want to leave the building in seniors. So they have the most with the fewest number of kids. So 7 to 8. My guess is they're going to tell us it's parking and it's hard to find a spot, and that's what equates to a lot of our targets. 1,000 of them come to just simply first hour, which is once they get in the building, they're where they're supposed to be, but that can be a challenge at times. So questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our student services report, Mr. Bombeck.
Hi, Dan Bombeck, Director of Student Services. I wanted to talk about the behavior intervention program. 2 years ago, there was a need that was identified in the district, and the board supported that need. Last year, we got that program kicked off and started, and Jamie Christensen and her group of interventionists did a massive amount of work last year, getting systems off the ground, getting documents in place, getting forms in place, setting up meetings. And more than anything, they spent a lot of time building relationships, because I think that's the biggest part of the personnel heavy industry like education. So they developed all those pieces so that they could improve just how the school and how students are interacting in the classroom, so we can focus on academics. As we looked at what we have a 3-tier approach to behavior when we look at our interventionists. We spend time in tier 1 with classroom teachers, consulting with them, making sure that they have the skills and the systems in place in their classrooms to be successful and keep the majority of their kids actively engaged in academics. Tier 2 is when we see that a student is maybe having a few issues with self-regulating, they may be missing just some little skills here and there that they're not picking up through the normal course of the day or the school-wide interventions. And so over the course of last year to this year, we've seen that in both those areas, we've seen tier 1 intervention support go up, which is a good thing. That's what we want to see. And we've seen tier 2 intervention support go down, which again is also a good thing. So overall, the behavior program is doing exactly what we hoped it would, which is get kids back into the educational environment for academic purposes and have the skills to be able to navigate their day with regulation of their emotions and things like that. So I also want to note tier 3 data isn't on there. Both of those were less than 1% school-wide. But if we were to look at that data, we would see that it just decreased as well. So we're seeing kids move back to that tier 1, again, which is what we're looking for. Moving forward to the future, they're going to work on I got to get this right, the 8 effective teaching and learning practices that are tied with behavior. Those are the next areas that they're going to be looking at. Those are going to tie very closely to some of the other district initiatives that are going to be getting updated in the months to come. Any questions for me?
Thank you for getting the data. I know when we were thinking about that program, that was one of the things we were asking you guys to do was show us that it's working, so we know we're investing our money wisely. So thank you for giving us data.
Absolutely. That's Jamie did a lot of work on it.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, next up is Mr. Feeney.
Well, good evening, Jimmy Feeney, Director of Secondary Education. Mr. Boy's point, I was able to be the judge at the spelling bee, and I have to say, watching the little third graders come up there and figure out how to get the mic to their mouth with the eighth graders, it was pretty funny, but they all got up there and got a question right. We had a middle school student place third, so we did well. We won it 3 years in a row, so I think somebody else was just due. It'll be fun to see where those third graders get in the next 5 years. Our report tonight, kind of speaking of that tiers analogy, that you use in behavior also applies to academics, and the Nebraska Reading Improvement Act is evidence of that. So the Nebraska Reading Improvement Act, the goal is to get all students reading by third grade. Some different stipulations that they put in there is that all students need to be screened 3 times a year. Currently in Bennington, as part of our adoption last year, M-Class Dibbles 8 is the assessment we use. And so that's used actually with kindergarten through 5th graders. You can see in there a couple different of the requirements of that, but just so you're aware, any student that does qualify goes on an individualized reading improvement plan. That should be communicated with parents, and then again, at parent-teacher conferences, those are reviewed. But the level of need varies between the kid and what they need and where they're struggling in reading. So what we look at in the data is, are we seeing kids come off our reports? When we go from session to session, are we seeing kids improve, which is the intention of the legislation? And so we put up there our numbers, and sometimes it's hard when you go by grade to see if you don't have you have under 10 kids, we black it out. But when you look at our total winter versus our total fall, you see a big reduction. That's exactly what you want to see when you do this, because it shows what you're doing is having an impact on kids. So we were excited when we reviewed that to see that, the implementation of the plans by our, Dr. Tyndall's leadership, our administrators, all the way down to their intervention and resource staff, classroom teachers, is having a positive impact. And then the last piece of note is just our professional learning. We have some things coming up, as well as a really great selective session professional development that took place on the 3rd. So I wanted to give you that information as we head into the 2nd semester. Any questions for me? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is Dr. Bloomington, our operations report.
Good evening, Matt Bloomington, Assistant Superintendent. Stacy, if you can scroll on the last paragraph, please. I am pleased to announce that Bennington Public Schools was awarded the Diamond Badge status by the Nebraska Department of Education in Nebraska School Safety this last month. What does that mean? It's the highest of NDE's safety and security standards. It has to do with prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. In Bennington, what does that mean? That means that we spend time on Vector Safe Schools programming. We have roundtable discussions. We work with our school resource officer, MOAC, ALICAP, the state department. We spend time with Bennington Police Department as well, making sure that our students and our staff and our faculty have a safe place to go to school. We work on reunification plans. We have safety drills and crisis plans that we build. Would like to thank Deputy Rainmaker over the course of the last 2 years. He, the building principals, and Chief Hillshire as well, have spent a lot of time with my office working through our plans to make sure that, again, we provide a safe place for our students to go to school. And it's nice that the state of Nebraska has recognized that there's a lot of hard work here down in Bennington, and they appreciate that. So I just wanted to report on that tonight. Questions I can answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's obviously a big deal. School safety is important to everybody, and to get the highest awards from the state of Nebraska is a big deal. So we're really proud of that.
All right, next up is our superintendent report.
Yeah, I'm going to be fairly brief tonight for the first time ever, but first thing up there is the strategic plan. When I arrived in July of 2024, there was a push by the district and board of education saying that they felt like it was time to update our strategic plan, and not a lot of work has been done towards that to this moment, but it's probably time to do that. Our strategic plan is over 15 years old. There have been some small tweaks with it, with the most recent, I think, in 2017. So as we approach the 2nd semester, I think it's probably time for us to really look at developing a comprehensive vision for our district, really outlining some long-term goals, operational decisions, and just aligning everything together, especially now seems like the right time to do it with the new board that is on here as well. And so my hope is that we establish a process for that over the next semester. Obviously, we've got a lot of things going on as a district, and the second semester is always crazy busy. But if we can start to figure out what our timeline is going to look like, who we want involved and what that could look like here over the second semester, I think that makes a lot of sense for Bennington Public Schools. So hopefully more information to come on this topic over the coming months. Second thing on there is teacher shortage report. This comes out last week every year, and for years and years and years, the number of teachers that had unfilled positions for teachers had gone up. Actually went down this year, and so it went from 908 down to 669 teachers. And that was with the same number of districts that were responding. And so I don't really have the why yet, or any data that shows, how we went from 908 to 669 as a state. But it, it did go down for the first time in quite a while. So that is a positive. A lot of that may be due to some of the certification rules that are starting to change. It's becoming a little bit easier to get a conditional permit and become a teacher. And so between that and maybe some staff members are out of the endorsed area, at least we've made some headway as a state. So we're excited about that. I just want to say thank you to U6 up there for the School Board Recognition Week, which will be between this meeting and the next one, the last week in January. Obviously, you guys have an incredibly important role in our community, within our school system, and I think it's totally appropriate to have a recognition week for you guys, and that'll take place at the end of January. I just want to thank you for all of your time and efforts, and for that highly paid position that you get down to all the time. So thank you very much for all you do, and it's really important for our staff and our students, so thank you. Last thing I had on there, just a legislative update. January 8th was the first day of the session. We're now on day 4, if I'm doing my math right. A reminder, bills get introduced between the first day and the 10th day. And so as of last time I looked, I think there were 200 already. I kind of forgot there was a new law that went through last year that limits 20 bills per senator. And so there still will probably be around 1,000 bills that would be introduced if all of them use their 20. But we're at 200 after 4 days. This time of year is really kind of crazy because all 1,000 bills get dropped, and then they start having hearings on them. And so every day you're going to be inundated with an email or an article in the paper on all the different hearings and all of these bills. Just a reminder, every bill gets a hearing. Not every bill hits the floor. Not every bill gets approved. And so it is a process. And, I think there are oftentimes, especially early in the session, like, man, this is going to take place. That's going to take place. It's just the start. It's 90 days. There's a lot that goes into it. There is the sausage making process. And so just give us some time. But we'll have a lot of those here in the first, the first couple of weeks. And that is, and then just a reminder, NASB does have their legislative conference January 26th and 27th if you are interested. And that is my report.
All right, thank you. I know we had some committee meetings this past month. I know the Building and Finance Committee met at the end of December to discuss some positions that need to be approved, and I think that's an agenda item later. So if everyone's okay with, we'll hold our discussion until then. Was there any update from the curriculum committee that you guys wanted to talk about?
I think we can discuss that at that
Okay,
point as
perfect.
well.
All right, that brings us to our coordinator report, which is Mr. Edens this evening on transportation and facilities. Hello, welcome, thanks for coming.
Good evening, Jeremy Edens, Coordinator of Facilities and Transportation. So starting out, some completed projects that we've done over the last couple of months and over the summer. We did move all of our landscaping and mowing equipment out of the cave and gave all that space to our activity and athletics so they have more space to store their items. Plus, I like having the equipment closer to me so I can keep an eye on it and make sure all our preventive maintenance is taken care of. We did construct a driver lounge over at our warehouse, nothing fancy, but it gives a place for our full-time drivers to kind of wind down and kind of hang out. Some of them have 1 to 2 hours between their routes, so it doesn't make sense for them to go home. Now they have a space that they can call home back there with us. We did some aerating and overseeding. This is the first year that we've been able to do all of that ourselves, thanks to a new piece of equipment that we purchased. It went really, really well and saved the district quite a bit of money. Over winter break, we completed filter changes on all of our HVAC equipment and completed deep cleaning of the facilities. Some future projects. Within the next couple of weeks, I'm hoping when it warms up a little bit, we're gonna install a windscreen on the north west barn fence. The windscreen that we purchased says it filters out 85% of the cold air, so we'll see how that goes. We did have a couple buses gel up on us last year, even with diesel treatment in the fuel tank, still gelled up on us. So, we're gathering bids right now to do some renovations on the soccer field at Anchor Point. Currently, that field's pretty rutted and pretty dangerous for our kids to be out there playing on, so we're gonna look at regrading it, seeding it, putting in some irrigation as well. Summer work orders and projects, Dr. Blumenkamp and I will be meeting with building principals and taking some feedback from our staff and creating a plan of action for the summer. Some training that we did, so one of our providers came in and hosted a heat pump training class for all of our maintenance guys. They found it very informative, so I want to thank them. So looking ahead, over winter break, we did an inventory of all of our classroom furniture that's in storage currently. We compiled all that in a spreadsheet and shared that with our administrators. So if they need something, they're not going to purchase it. They'll go to a spreadsheet and we'll even deliver it for them. Upgrades are needed on our train tracer SC systems at Pine Creek and Heritage. So if you think of a computer, the 10-year-old computer doesn't work that great. It's the same thing with our train controls. So it's getting harder to do updates on it, and it's just about time. So I'm working on getting some bids so we can do some planning on when we can do that. This building, Bennington Elementary, has 12 rooftop heat pumps. This is kind of antiquated technology. It's not the best for our students for fresh air. So I'm working with Saris and Train to kind of develop a plan to either replace these with something more efficient or something that's going to be better for our students and staff. This winter, we did award a new contract for snow removal. Blade Masters, locally owned company, was awarded the contract. We've had 3 weather events, and they've done a fantastic job for us. Over the summer, we'll be doing some more repairs, unfortunately, at Heritage Elementary and Park Lot. Energy efficiency. So we've been working with Train on a study of just our high school. Overall, our building is performing better than peer buildings. We're going to be working with Train closely to make some changes in the way we operate our HVAC equipment. So we're going to try to avoid some peak charges. But if you can see by the chart here, we're at $2.43 per square foot. Average peer building is $2.76. Energy efficient and like LEED certified, amazing brand new building is about $1.62 per square foot. So we're not far off. We do want to put some goals out there and maybe some initiatives to try and encourage staff to drive that number down a little bit. One fact I found pretty interesting is 99% of our utility cost actually comes from electricity. Only 1% comes from natural gas. All right, so back in 2024, we created a position, a groundskeeper position. So this person is responsible for our many sports fields across the district. So they stripe all of our game fields, they assist with softball, baseball, mowing and trimming at the other schools. The big thing for us though is the coverage at our other 8 schools if a custodian calls out or is sick or is on leave, right? Otherwise that would be me or my assistant heading over there to cover that. So it's been a big help for us. They also assist with snow removal, big projects, aerating and overseeing was all done by our groundskeeper. So very happy to have that position on our team. On to transportation. So our ridership has grown, big surprise. You'll see the 2020 dip was associated with COVID, so we are starting to get back on track. We were growing about 100 to 120 students per year. I anticipate 24, 25, as we add students and more students living in the district, will be around 970 to end the school year. So, so routes, we have 25 daily routes. So each of those routes has at least 2 runs per day, so that's 50 routes, essentially a day. Every day, Bennington Public Schools drivers drive 1,283 miles. Activity trips, so this is going to be sports or clubs or any other activity field trips. So far in the first semester, we've done 340 trips. for 21,800 miles. Our fleet, right now, we have 39 total vehicles in our fleet. 22 large, big buses, 7 special education buses, 2 suburban, 6 vans, and 2 operational vehicles. I will be meeting with the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Blumenkamp, towards the end of this school year to take a look at our needs and decide if we're going to add or replace any vehicles for the coming school year. Drivers, right now, we have 20 drivers employed with Bennington Public Schools. We do contract 5 drivers through First Student Incorporated. Let's see. So one of the things that we really need to work on is we probably need to remain competitive in a very competitive CDL market. So right now we start at $22.35, we go up to $25.35 for route, $17.25 for activity. We're facing a pretty hard start to second semester. We have 2 drivers out on medical leave and 1 is resigning. So we'll be trying to get creative to fill those positions. We'll be putting a sign up by the bus barn here in a couple days or so. Some opportunities for transportation. So consideration of staggering start and dismissal times by 45 to 60 minutes. This would make each route a sprint route and nearly double the capacity each driver could transport daily. That would mean about 40 to 45% less drivers needed and 40 to 45% less vehicles on the road. Split routes could potentially make our drivers full-time and that would help with recruiting because they would be eligible for benefits. And then we do have a proposal out right now for a full-time mechanic. That position would be vital to our success. And fingers crossed, it goes through. Do you have any questions?
On the concrete at Heritage, I know we patched last year. Is that holding up?
It's holding up really well.
Just want to make sure. Thank you.
Sorry, when you say we need to remain competitive, are those earnings, is that currently competitive with the market out there, or do we need to look at that?
We probably need to.
22 to 25, what is the going rate for a CDL?
We probably need to look at it. So I did a wage survey and given it to Dr. Blumenkamp. It's kind of difficult because some schools pay by the route. So they'll say $55 per route, how long's a route? So that's not hard for us to translate, but we're gonna work through that, but I do think there's some room for improvement, or maybe we can entice some drivers over to our side.
And then Jeremy, why is the activity rates lower?
Activity rate is lower because those drivers are just activity drivers. So the way that we always worked it was they're kind of like a substitute teacher. They don't get paid the full amount, like a full-time driver would. In addition to that, they are paid for their entire time, not just the time they're driving. So if they go to a basketball game, they get paid to eat popcorn, watch basketball, go Badgers.
So there are different drivers.
Yes, we do have 3 activity drivers on staff. They're extremely part-time and they're there to help when they're available.
Thank you.
Thank you, very informative.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, that brings us to our spotlight report this evening, our preschool program. Ms. Emery and Ms. Dahlgren are going to help educate us on the preschool side. Welcome, thank you guys for coming. Glad to have you here.
Hello. Hi, this is Rachel Emery. This is our preschool staff. We have 3 classroom teachers and 2 speech and language pathologists that work with our students daily. We also have paras in each classroom. Some classrooms have 3 right now, and some have 2. Mrs. Sindelar is always trying to fill our para positions. So, and then we also have our OT and PT that work with our students with special needs. And we also have a ESU early childhood coordinator this year that's a new position. And Morgan Cole is doing a great job filling that out for us.
Yeah, so we just
And then we also use transportation, yeah. Yeah. So while we use the creative curriculum, it's a research-based approach to learning that incorporates the language, literacy, and mathematics through play-based hands-on activities, which pairs well with our My Teaching Strategies goal assessment that we use with students, as it's created by the same company. So it's been really positive at aligning with assessing where our students are at. The daily routine is developed with a mix of our teacher-directed lessons and student-led learning opportunities. And these learning opportunities are able to be adapted for students with and without special needs based on where we're assessing them at, which is awesome. And then our study topics are based on different interests that the students have shown us in our classroom. And some may have prior knowledge and experience with some of those studies, or it may be a new opportunity for them to learn.
We divided our studies into year A and year B so that all students, since we have 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds, would not overlap on studies. And then if they switch teachers from year to year, they would also have the opportunity to always have new topics. Each study has our center enhancing toys, books, and other materials that we rotate throughout the year and throughout each study. So for year A, which we're currently in, we are doing balls, pets, boxes, recycling, wheels, and trees. So some of these studies, all 3 classrooms are doing at the same time, and some we rotate so that each classroom is doing something different at that time. And we're doing about 5-week study sessions. And then in year B, which we'll do next year, we have buildings, gardening, roads, music, clothes, and exercise.
Here is our first study that we were able to do this year. It's the ball study, because all students have experiences with some form of ball. And so it's been so fun to have these hands-on opportunities. We were able to use documentation where all students can talk about questions, explore the topic, and then we meet back again and talk about what they learned. It's a lot of documentation of the whole entire process, so that by the end of our celebration of our study, we can see how far that we have learned and answering any questions. And these are some photos of the various centers where we've added balls. So in the sensory centers, we have some bigger balls, and then also in another classroom, there are some smaller light table, as well as some marble runs.
And these are just more pictures of the students participating in the different centers. So the top one is just like a marble run where they were creating different ways for the marble to move down the path. So a lot of science. The balls, this was probably a favorite that they just learned how to pump the ball up and then got to deflate it. So they were just seeing how the ball worked. And then, like Taylor said, we did a lot of documentation. So how big around, we learned the word circumference, and we talked about different balls and how the circumference differed depending on the type of ball. And then we also did a lot of hands-on activities. So we, the kids got to like throw different balls. So I had, and then like yarn balls, basketballs. We even threw meatballs just to see that, you know, balls do different things. Some of them bounce a lot, some of them just roll. And so the kids really enjoyed getting to participate in these hands-on experiences. And we bring it back to that documentation. So the teacher's always writing, always showing the kids, yeah.
So the materials purchased along with our curriculum have been invaluable to the success of our new curriculum and implementation. It's been so fun to watch the kids explore and be able to learn through the materials that we received.
So we're just very grateful that the district provided the curriculum this last year and the opportunity for us to really dive into it and, you know, get the quality materials that we really needed in preschool. So I will say it's probably the first year that I felt like I had a lot of quality materials to start the year. And we've been able to continue that throughout the year. Every study, we have the materials we need. So we really appreciate that.
Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. Do we have a lobbying report this evening? I'm sure we'll have to hear from her plenty over the next 90 days.
I don't have to report on it yet. I don't know if we've had time to digest it.
Okay. All right, that brings us to our new business this evening. And the first item is what we alluded to earlier, discuss, consider, and take action on the curriculum and personnel proposals. Dr. Fox?
Yeah, so the curriculum committee met before the new year started and just kind of looked at it, continuing to begin with those that are high-ranking proposals, so those that the committee felt was important, those that our teacher-led committee felt was important, and administrators felt were important. So we started there, but also tried to prioritize, not knowing where next year's budget situation is going to be quite yet. Those that maybe have some opportunities to have some offsetting costs that are associated with them. And so that's what the committee is bringing forward today is three proposals that all kind of have an offsetting cost, or at least two of them do. First one's an assistant principal at Anchor Point. We saw just an incredible change in the enrollment at Anchor Point this year. We went up over 70 students in that one building. Something to remember about Anchor Point is it isn't just the K-5 building, it's also the preschools located there as well. And so with 500 plus kids are coming in and out of that building each day. I felt like that was important. Last year, we did start with a preschool coordinator that you just heard about. We were talking about moving that to a full-time position, but instead to help offset the cost of that, we'll leave that coordinator in place, which will help offset the cost of an assistant principal. It's, Mr. Boyes does an awesome job, and that building's just growing like a weed, to be quite honest. And as we get into our housing report later, we still believe there's additional growth that's probably going to take place next year. And so we're recommending the addition of an assistant principal at Anchor Point. Second one is special education. We had a proposal for 4 of those. This would be the second one that we were looking at. Again, this one is an offsetting cost because 80% of that is reimbursed through the state of Nebraska. And so if this position were to be hired, we know that we'd have 80% of that cost reimbursed by the state. The third one is a change in how we would do business at the department level at the high school. It would implement department heads. And so right now we have, 10 teachers that are in the science department. We don't necessarily have a department head, and all of those go to the building principals. And so kind of adding a layer, also allowing some leadership opportunities for our staff members, by implementing department heads, it'd be a place for those people to go to, help solve the problems, and then if necessary, get the building administration involved. And so one thing that we've kind of heard is there's just not enough leadership opportunities for staff. And when you have 300 plus teachers, you want to make sure that you have those opportunities as well. Felt like this was not only good for us within the building, but it's also good for us as a system. And so that was moved forward as well. So all in, the total for those 3 positions of just under $247,000, but the actual cost estimated with them is about $123,000 when you subtract out the offsetting costs within the budget or the reimbursement from the state. And so I feel like we're getting a lot of value in the positions with a limited cost associated with them.
Any other feedback from the curriculum committee on the discussion? It made sense to us in building and finance, so appreciate your thoughtful spending and making sure we're doing things that are highest bang for our buck kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim or Jeremy, do you have anything else for building and finance?
Not at all.
Right. I move to accept the recommendations by the curriculum committee for the 25-26 curriculum and personnel proposals numbers 2, 31, and 14 as outlined in the December 9th, 2024 curriculum committee report and pending 25-26 budget approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Tim. Any other discussion? All right, Jody, please call the roll.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes.
Shout out my ear at the woo-hoo from Mr. Boyes over here.
Dancing inside. Giant man dancing.
He's wearing his party socks.
Yeah.
I'm wearing my party socks.
Very much needed.
All right. My agenda says the next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take action on the 25-26 negotiated agreement. So the Building and Finance Committee has been negotiating with the Bennington Education Association over the last couple months. And we have reached a tentative agreement with the BEA, and we are, as a committee, the Building and Finance Committee, unanimously recommending approval here this evening. Just wanted to highlight a couple things. First of all, grateful to the BEA for being an excellent negotiating partner, professional, smooth and productive process. I think our discussions were very open, thoughtful, and constructive. We've received some feedback and we were able to provide the same. The total agreement represents, the total compensation package is an increase of 4.13%, which includes horizontal and vertical movement on the salary scale, as well as some insurance changes, the health insurance piece, and open to questions from folks or discussion if necessary. Any other feedback from Building and Finance on our negotiation process? I thought it went really well this year. I was pleased with it.
It's very nice to work with the teachers. They bring very important stuff to us, and we sure do want to help them. And I feel like we've done a very good job with them. So we appreciate those guys a lot.
Any other questions from the other folks? Okay.
You're done.
All right, is there a motion?
I move to approve the negotiated agreement for the 2025-26 school year between the Bennington Board of Education and the Bennington Education Association. Second.
Thank you. Tim and Joe, any other discussion? All right, Jody, call the roll.
Christie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Motion passes. All right, next item is for us to review school calendars, which is always a fun topic. So Dr. Paz, can you take us through some proposed changes to the next couple of years calendar?
Everybody's favorite, some school calendar discussion. We'll begin with the 25-26 school calendar. We obviously try to get input from as many people as we can as we develop our school calendar. And so we've had discussions with the staff committee, with the superintendent teacher advisory committee, recommendations from our building principals and administrators. And there's just a lot of stuff that goes into a school calendar. So the more that everybody learns what is necessary, the better we can all work together. And I feel like it's been a fairly good process. After we drilled down into the calendar, we were really able to identify 2 days that we felt like we could use a little bit differently. One, you guys already approved for 24-25. That was that summer curriculum day. It was kind of a floating day that we moved back into the calendar. And so in 25-26, I'm not screwing around with years the whole time, but in 25-26, that day is represented on May 1st. And so we did it in 24-25, and now we got to retroactively to the 25-26, 26-27. And so a reminder, that was a summer curriculum day where we look at our curriculum, make sure it's all aligned. We look at our pacing guides and our teachers within each grade level and department, make sure that they are providing the best education for kids. And so that's moved into May 1st. The next day that we identified as a possible change through our various discussions was a checkout day. And so typically students have their last day of school. The day afterwards is a checkout day for the staff. And so staff would come in, make sure that we had their keys, make sure that we had, if there was anything that needed to be addressed throughout the course of the year. And that was their final day, they could get their rooms put together. We feel like we could do that in a half day on the last day with students. And so students would leave at noon, or they're dismissed at noon. We could do the checkout day from noon to 3:45 on that day, and then that's the end of the school year. So that opens up that day to go somewhere into the calendar. Well, next year in 25-26, the calendar is really compressed because we're trying our best. We can't always do it, but we're trying our best to be out by Memorial Day. Well, Memorial Day is on May 25th. And so the whole calendar is really compressed. There was nowhere that we could put it in the calendar without taking a student day away. Long term, though, what we'd like to do with that is create a professional development in-service day where we really focus on data, put it earlier in the school year. Not right away. Let's get our teachers here, let's get them acclimated, let's let them understand where their classes are at and feel good. And then let's start talking about data. That way we can implement it during that year as opposed to being late. And so typically we'd like to do that somewhere in that middle-ish of September to late September, but there's no place to put it on the calendar in 25-26. And so knowing that we have that staff day, but we can't affect student days, we actually put it in
August 7th of this year. And so instead of having 3 in-service days to start the year, we'll have 4 in-service days. I think any teacher since the dawn of time will tell you there's never enough time at the start of the year. There's just so much to get done. And so 3 days would be 8 days. It's still just not quite enough. And so we felt like this is a good place where we can relieve some of that congestion at the start of the year because we really don't have anywhere to put it within the calendar and still have that contract day. That's not the case in 26, 27, but we can talk about that later. And so in 25, 26, as it is presented, there's basically 3 changes. The checkout day moving to August 7th, the summer curriculum day, which moved to May 1st, and that was previously approved for the 24, 25. And then what we did do, last thing is on September 24th, this is where we would probably have that in-service day that we talked about that we don't have room in the calendar to do. We added a second early out within that month, so we can kind of do like an abbreviated version of it, sort of stair step our way in. So instead of 1 early out during September, we'd have the second one. This will get us off and going in 25, 26. That'll probably become a full day at 26, 27. So we'll work our way into what that will eventually be in 26, 27. So those would be the 3 changes that are proposed in 25, 26. Okay, 26, 27. All the same things, just kind of a quick update, a reminder of what has to go into a school calendar. We have been adopting 2 years in advance. This allows our parents to kind of plan if they're looking at vacations, what that could look like for spring break and other off times. And so I think that that's been appreciated. We have requirements to have 1,032 hours for our elementary students and 1,080 hours for our high school students. We have roughly 8-ish days built in or in hours, where if we had a whole bunch of days off or something, we'd still meet the requirement. Other than our seniors get pretty close. They're out a few days early. You have a couple snow days, it can get kind of tight. And so the seniors are fairly tight. They just have additional hours within there. In addition, just worth noting that last year we went to a new snow day model where the first snow day, staff make that up, students do not make it up. This second snow day, staff have professional development, it's a remote professional development, and then students do not make that up. Once we get to the third day, everybody's making that up. And so that would be on the end of the calendar. We just keep adding days. It got really weird last year because we're like, hey, we got this new system. And by the way, we had 3 snow days in the very first week of second semester. And so it didn't quite feel like the system that we all envisioned, but that was the circumstances. And so same thing this year. We also know that our final day is a Friday and then come back after Memorial Day if we get to the third snow day. So we're just really hoping that doesn't happen. But transition 26, 27 calendar, just a few highlights. First day of school will be on August 7th. We have 3 in-service days for staff. First day for students, August 12th. We would have 3 days for Thanksgiving break, which has kind of become the norm at pretty much every school at this point. Winter break would be from December 19th to January 5th for students. And then graduation on May 16th with the last day of school on May 25th. And so this calendar sets up way better to achieve our goals. And so we look through, we try to do, when we hear from people, we have negotiables and non-negotiables. We want time in school, especially during the testing sessions, especially during the learning windows. When we have a spring break, we've heard that people want a week. And so we try to get that in there, about 3 days for Thanksgiving and then 2 weeks for Christmas. We kind of hear that over and over. Some years you can do it and some years you can't. 26, 27, the calendar is a goal. Like we are able to do almost everything that people have asked for during those weeks. And we're done before Memorial Day because it's not till May 31st. And so it just opened up that whole extra week for us. And so 26, 27 is a lot easier calendar to work our way through. You'll notice that April 30th, that's the summer curriculum day we talked about. And then October 2nd is the PD day or the in-service day, the data day that we're doing the early out in 25, 26. October 2nd would be the day for that, 26, 27. So we're kind of able to achieve all the goals in that year. Any questions on those? Not asking for approval tonight, just additional input. We're going to make sure everybody's being heard on our school calendar.
Any other feedback on the calendars? Seems reasonable.
Yep, awesome.
All right, next up is our district cash flow report.
So each year, just like to kind of outline where we're at with our cash flow. This is important because our primary revenue source obviously is local property taxes and state aid. Well, our local property taxes only come in really for us because we're so residential heavy. They come in oh my gosh, I'm totally blanking, in April and August, excuse me. And so in March and April, we typically see the lowest levels of our cash flow. And so we go, because we are also relying on state aid, one good part of that is we receive that over a 10-month period, but then we just get these two huge injections of property taxes during those 2 months. And so you've got to make sure you have enough reserve to get yourself to that moment when those big influxes come in. And so just like to manage that, look at that, make sure that we're always in a good spot, make sure you guys feel confident that, as payroll is being paid and as bills are rolling through, we have the funds to pay for those, even in the down months. And so those are outlined in there. You can see in March is the lowest our reserve typically goes to. And we have just over 4 million, February, I guess the lowest. We have just over 4 million forecast at that time. And so not only can we make our payments, we got reserve there if property taxes don't show up that month or there's a delay, which can also happen, we have the ability to continue to function in a good way. And so in there, we also have 2 reserve funds. First one's our depreciation fund, which is earmarked for replacement of essential items and facilities. And so this typically will be used for textbooks, vehicles, maintenance equipment, some capital replacement, technology. That's typically where we pay out of that. We currently have just under, we have $4,373,000 in that account right now. And so we could utilize that account in a short term, but then you have to ask for it to come back within a 2-year period. So you can borrow against yourself, but it's not for very long. The other one is our special building fund. As far as a reserve fund, we currently have $12,169,000 within that fund. That can only be used for capital projects. And so as we talk about utilizing reserves to pay towards a capital project for a second high school, that's where most of those funds would come out of. And so we have 12 million, basically 12.2 million within that fund, but it has to go towards infrastructure for the learning environment. With that, you'll see all the projections that we have on here also incorporate $2 million to utilize out of the general fund to help pay down bond debt. That's on the agenda later for your approval. If you do so, that is reflected here, so you don't have to subtract that out. It's all put in there to see that. With that, there's state law and board guidelines that stipulate that we want to stay at about 25% of our budget general fund cash reserves. We were just over that to start this year, and so we were in a really good place, which puts us in with the opportunity to potentially utilize those funds to help pay down some of our bond debt that's on the agenda later. With that, Building and Finance Committee, we're always looking at our numbers, we're looking at our budget, we're always reviewing what we're able to do and not do as a school system, and we'll continue to do that into the future as well. With that, happy to entertain or answer any questions.
Do you have questions on the cash flow report? All right, thank you for that update. All right, the next item is our housing report, which I know you guys spent some of your quality winter break looking at all the houses being built in Bennington.
It is district office personnel's favorite time of year. We listen to Christmas music and count houses. It is loved and cherished and a time-honored tradition unlike any other. This year's housing report shows that we added 256 homes compared to the previous year. In 2023, we had 344 homes. So the number of homes that were added within our district was less than it was in 23. Probably not overly surprising as we've seen construction slow down just a little bit, associating that with inflation and high interest rates and all those things that have happened over the last couple of years. And so we counted, and like full disclosure, this is an art, and so it is hard to roll through these brand new developments and figure out on the little map like how many houses are under construction compared to the previous year, because you're going down this long street and there's one house under construction, and then you come back the previous year and it doesn't look like it's in the same place because there's all the additional, like it is a little bit of an art. And this year we did count 125 homes that were under construction, which was one less than last year. And so that tells us we can probably assume next year at this time, we're gonna be pretty close to 245 additional homes, much like we were this year. This is down compared to previous years, as you can see up there with the number of homes that we've seen each year. And so last year was 126, this year is 125. Year before it was 178. Prior to that, we were clipping around 300 homes per year. And so if you talk to developers, their assumption is that we will not only go back to 300 homes developed per year, but they think there's enough pent-up demand that will actually increase well beyond that. So they have folks that are in homes, they want to move, interest rates are super high, they're not willing to do it right now, but if interest rates come down, they think that it's really gonna pop. And that's what the developers are telling us. As of this moment, this is what we know, and that's construction's down, and we probably anticipate our student growth to be fairly close to what we saw this year as well. With that, what we can anticipate in the future, there are just over 1,800 lots that are to be developed in subdivisions that are being developed right now. And so not platted with no development yet, but are in subdivisions that are currently being developed. There are 1,800 lots available in those as of this moment. There's another questions in the past about what the large scale rental units and so these big apartment complexes are popping up. What is that going to do to our student population? As of this moment, 409 of 442 of the rental units are occupied. So they're basically at full capacity. And so I think what we've seen as far as student influx from those large rental units is what we're going to see today. More could come in the future, but they're basically at full capacity. So won't see a huge influx on that one. There are 1,429 lots that are platted for development that are in subdivisions that haven't started yet. So they're platted, they're ready, there's roads, there's lights, but not a single home is, not a single basement's been done yet. So there's 1,400 in those. Let's see, what other items I want to talk about. It is most all of the construction, the platting is in that corridor to 168 and 156. And so we do anticipate that'll continue to move forward to the north. There's just tons of developments that are within that area. All in, we have just under 3,300 lots within our district that are ready to be constructed. So the number of homes occupied increased by 3.99% compared to the previous year. And then our average over the last year is 206 homes. And so another data point, another thing for us to look at, we obviously look at enrollment trends, but those are lagging indicators. You can't, you look at your enrollment, you're looking backwards to try to predict the future. The housing count also allows us to have another data point to look forward into next year. So feeling more confident about what that can look like for us. Questions on our housing report?
Thank you to everyone who's driving around.
It's a blast.
I do think it's
You
helpful.
should sell tickets.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
All right, the next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take all necessary action on a resolution regarding some bond debt.
Yeah.
I'll lead us through the discussion. I know you had a discussion last month, just refresh our memory.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cody Wickham's here from DA Davidson in case there's any questions that are complicated. But kind of a reminder how we got here in our July budget retreat. You guys had asked, is there a way for us to continue to pick away at our debt? We know that we had $165 million in debt. What can we do to continue to move that number down? And we know that our principal payments are increasing moving forward, and that's great. But is there other ways to do it? And so we went through the bond tender offer to see if we could, get more bang for our buck. And obviously that didn't work last month. And so we're back here just with a regular defeasance. And so DA Davidson worked through those bonds we had that were eligible. We have to have a bond for so long before it's eligible to be called early. Kind of identified the 2019 series as the one that would work the best. Not only save us the most money, but also we have moments in time where our payments are higher than others, and so try to smooth those out for us over time. And so they are recommending the 3 bonds that are up there. Each of them carry a 4% coupon to them. If they total up to $2 million, this would be paid from the general fund. If these were defeased early and you approved it, it would save the district $410,089 moving forward. And so, you got
$165 million in debt. This would pay off $2 million early, but it does save us $410,000 over the course of time. And so I think this is definitely worth doing. It's worth something that we need to continue to look at as a district, of where can we pick away and when do we have the funds available to do so. This would be paid for out of the general fund, which began the year with $13,259,000 of cash on hand. We kind of went through the cash flow report on why we have those funds and what that looked like. And we feel like this is a good opportunity to continue to pay down debt, which our community has told us they'd like us to do.
So just wanted to confirm that this would be in addition to the $4 million we're already planning on paying, so it's $4 million plus an additional $2.
Yeah, our principal payments this year are $3,905,000, and so we would be paying off $3.9 million plus this $2 million, so that would be $5.9 million of principal paid off during this fiscal year.
And there's no cost to the transaction.
No cost to the transaction, correct?
Any other questions? Anybody?
Did I do okay, Cody? Did I miss anything?
You did a great job.
Yes.
All right, I move to approve the resolution calling for the general obligation school building bond series 2019 for redemption prior to maturity as presented.
Second?
Thank you, Steve. Any other further discussion or questions? All right, Jody, call the roll, please.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. Motion passes. All right, lots of new business. All right, next item is for us to discuss, consider, and take all necessary action on a resolution calling for a special bond election to be held on March 11, 2025, to submit to the qualified voters of the district for their approval or rejection the issuance of general obligation school building bonds in an amount not to exceed $112 million for the purpose of constructing, acquiring, and improving district facilities, including a new high school building. So I know we've talked about this in every month, so it feels like a broken record, but in the interest of full clarity on what we're asking here this evening, will you kind of run us through the basics?
Yeah, so this is asking for approval for a $112 million bond issue for a second high school. Went through the entire presentation last month to try to additional transparency and field your guys' questions in addition to anybody else from the community as well. And so this would be $112 million. It would be repaid over a 21-year period. The total project cost would be $124,645,829. Working with D.A. Davidson on the financing side, DLR on the architectural side, and then Hausman on the construction side. It would be a new high school located 180th in Military. It would be a 240,000 square foot facility, and we went through all of that last month as well. A few items of note is that this does not include any renovations to Badger Stadium. This is for the high school and the subsequent facilities only. That continues to be something that we hear in the community is, it's for Badger Stadium upgrades. It is not. It is a high school and the related facilities. It's all in a $124.6 million project with a $112 million bond. As far as the funding side of it, the district would use just over $12.6 million of reserves to help offset the cost of that, which we talked a little bit about earlier, with most of that coming from the special building fund. It would not have a tax rate increase. This would keep the levy at, our current bond fund levy is 35.8 cents. It would keep the bond fund levy at 35.8 cents. So there would be no tax rate increase on this proposal. Based on the assumptions that we have from D.A. Davidson as we continue to model it out. And so even if in the current model, it assumes a 9% valuation increase over 5 years, 7% over 5 years, and 5% remaining. Even if we didn't have those increases that we anticipated, we have reserves available where it would have to be at 6.15, which would be the lowest valuation increase that we've had, I think, in the last 15 years, and we'd have to have 7 consecutive years before we'd have to have conversations about what to do. And so not only do we believe that we can keep the levy at 35.8 cents moving forward, it's 7 years from now, we have a bunch of debt that drops off the table, and now we can have conversations about whether we lower the levy, whether we keep the levy the same and pay off bond debt faster, or if we continue to grow and we need additional capital projects, we could do it without increasing the levy. And so Projecting out with what we have, that 35.8 cents that we have now, should not only cover what we need today, it would cover this potential proposal, and then once we get 7 years down the line, it would be able to cover any way that the board decided to go at that time. So feel pretty confident in what that could look like. With that, talking about our debt level, and just want to reiterate that, you know, we paid $33 million over the last 20 years, but we're expected to pay almost 28 million in the next 5 years and 64 million in the next 10. And so the low principal payments are moving to more robust principal payments in the future.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, I believe there is a motion on the table, and then we'll have discussion.
I move to approve the bond resolution as presented.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Joe. All right, now time for robust discussion. This is obviously a big decision for the board. I want to make sure everybody has a chance to publicly declare input and ask any necessary questions. So fire away.
Yeah, I think we've had a lot of discussions. I just appreciate the hard work on the budget and making sure that we're not increasing our levy and keeping it the same. So thank you guys for doing that work. Appreciate it.
Saying's third time's a charm, right? Let's get this done. This is something that is needed. I've been in this district since '84, and it's been tough times and good times, and now we can make it great times. So I think this is something that has to be severely supported and move on and keep our school district amazing. It's just a great place.
I ditto all the appreciation for the work. I know a lot of people have worked hard to take the input from the community and make it a reality in this proposal, and so I'm very appreciative. I do want to share one other additional reason for my support of this bond in terms of the necessity of building a high school from a school counseling perspective. And I just believe it's vital to our community from kind of a social, emotional, mental health perspective, as well as an academic achievement perspective, to have students have a feeling and a sense of belonging at their school. And that this bond would allow our kids more opportunities, both in the classroom and extracurricularly, to belong and find their fit and achieve those things that they desire to achieve. And so in addition to obviously supporting our students and our amazing staff and retaining our amazing teachers, I just really want to encourage us to look at all the different facets of the bond and what it will provide for our community. So I'm encouraged by the support that we heard earlier tonight from the speakers, but also just want to encourage everybody to really pay attention and advocate for what you believe.
Well, I'm honored that I get to do this at my first school board meeting. I know all of you have worked with this in years past, but during my campaign, nearly every voter I talked to brought up the question, when are we getting to new high school? So I know it's top of mind for a lot of people. The district doesn't just want this, this is a need, and I think that's been communicated in many ways. It's been very open and transparent with that, so I want to thank Dr. Pawson and his folks talking about the challenges and the struggles that come along with us being over capacity, what that means and what that struggle would look like, but also the effort that's put into paying the debt down. That's been a huge emphasis. I heard that from many people, and the work that's happened in addition to what's going to happen, and even just what we voted on, shows tremendous strides in that effort. But I can't emphasize enough with it being a zero increase in the tax level, not costing folks any more. That's going to stay consistent as it each day, because we've been very successful, and the success of this district is dependent upon the investment in our kids, the investment in our teachers. That support needs to continue. I've seen not just from campaigning, but my time as a parent in the district, it's grown in transparency, the collaboration that's happened. It's a culture that's been much more open, which I appreciate. That's reflected out in some of the surveys that we've seen come back. We now have systems in place for both short and long-term success. I mean, when you look at what we've done as a district, just the way that our scores have increased, the fact that we're not just doing okay, we're outpacing our peer institutions, our peer schools that have the same kind of kids, the same demographics, we're doing better than they are. For us to continue in that, we need to make this investment. Talking about teacher recognition, I mean, what better way to say it than we have the Nebraska Teacher of the Year. in our ranks. I mean, that shows the quality of teachers that we have and what we're doing as a district. And so I'll close with saying, I think a community shows what they value by what they build. And so I'm probably going to support this, and I hope, and all of our seniors that are in the audience and folks that can go home and tell your parents, and if you're able to vote, continue to do that and support your school.
Thank you. Appreciate all the feedback. I just want to begin by thanking the administration for the last 8 months for seeking feedback, both formally and informally from our community. That was huge. And I keep telling people we have this unusual problem of people wanting to move here, which is a great thing, right? It's really not a problem. People move here because of the community. It's a wonderful place to live and raise a family. And I believe the district is the heart of the community here. So I'm really proud of the work we've done to educate the kids here in Bennington. And we as a board over the last many months, the district, we've sought feedback at least 6 or more of the last board meetings. It's been on your report, reporting back in our direction, ask the community, what do they want? What is acceptable to the community? We are striving to make the perfect plan for folks to approve. As a board member, I feel like I've had ample time to review, comment, seek data, talk to patrons. I've talked to a lot too, Joe. And I hear it over and over again. People really want us to consider what facility needs are to continue the excellence we have in our district. So appreciate the collaboration between the board and the administration. And I'm looking forward to what transpires in the coming months. So thank you. Okay, anybody else? Feedback? Questions? What questions do we have? Any? All right. Jody, call the roll.
Allison?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, that brings us to a close. I know that was a lot. Joe, welcome aboard. Today's first meeting. I promise they won't all be this long and arduous. I just wanted to remind the folks about a couple of items. Our next regular board meeting is February 10th at 6 o'clock here in the district office. We will, I'm sure, have committee meetings over the course of the next month, so we'll be on the lookout for you guys and your committee assignments. There is a professional development opportunity on January 21st and 22nd with the Nebraska Association of School Boards. And just wanted to announce some tentative bond community meeting dates. As we did on the prior bond, we will be out in the community trying to reach patrons. So we encourage you to tell your friends and family to please attend, get the questions answered. That's January 29th, February 3rd, and February 18th. And then, of course, the vote based on the resolution this evening will be March 11th. It is a special ballot, so it will be mailed to your home.
And we will be sending out an informational mailer quite quickly to all patrons within the district, and then we'll have several other mailings as well that will go out, make sure everybody knows it's within there, as we heard that on the surveys, mail us. That's what we heard over and over on the surveys as well.
Great. All right, I move to adjourn the meeting. Thank you, Steve. Jody, call the roll.
Jeremy? Tim?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Allison?
Yes. All right, we are adjourned. And any students in the room, if you need your paperwork signed, please come up and get your signature.